Good morning, everybody. Dr. Nicola Ducharme here. This morning, I just wanted to give you a quick introduction to something called mast cell activation syndrome. You see it abbreviated sometimes as MCAS. So mast cell activation syndrome is something that, again, I'm seeing more and more. And basically what it is it's a sort of dysfunction in the immune system, if you will, where the mast cells release histamine in abnormal amounts. So generally speaking, having some histamine release is kind of not an uncommon thing, but in MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome, there's a really high level of histamine release from these mast cells. And what's interesting about the MCAS is that I have seen it be triggered by things like chronic Lyme disease and like mold toxicity. But it gets to be a bit of a catch-22 because mast cell activation syndrome will make tolerating treatment harder for people because they're so reactive. So we get in this sort of catch-22 situation where it may be chronic infections or other toxicities that have confused the immune system. And so the immune system is kind of on hyper alert, if you will. And that's why you get these unhealthy responses. But at the same time, the MCAS can get in the way of the treatment that people need to address the cause of the MCAS, right? So we get into this little catch-22. And so when I find or when I suspect MCAS in an individual, it's worth going after that first so that everything else, calms down and we can get around to other treatments. And there's no sort of perfect lab test for MCAS. I mean, sometimes it's very obvious clinically. So when we see mast cell activation, when the mast cells release a lot of histamine, we can get sneezing, we can get runny eyes, we can get itchy skin rashes, we can actually get welts and hives on the skin. There's some more obvious manifestations of it. However, it can cause a lot of the same chronic symptoms as other issues, including headaches, migraines, neurological symptoms, fatigue. And so there are a few lab tests that can sort of help indicate MCAS. None of them are absolutely perfect. And then we want to sort of look at it from a clinical standpoint as well and just kind of assess in terms of what's going on for the individual. The other thing with MCAS is that it can make people really hyperreactive to food. And one of the things, so when somebody has a lot of food reactivities, I either think leaky gut, because then all the larger food molecules can get through the gap junctions in the small intestine, get to the bloodstream and cause an immune response. Or increasingly these days, I'm thinking, is that a mast cell problem? And so there are some foods that are higher in histamines. There are foods to choose that are lower in histamines, but there are also specific enzymes that one can take with meals to help break down the histamines in food, where some foods are like histamine provoking. It's not like they contain histamine within themselves, but they have the ability to trigger more of a histamine response. And so a lot of people are doing, like over-the-counter Claritin and other sort of medications that block histamine, but they do come with their own side effects as well. So I've kind of put together, I've got a little collection of 3 or 4 things that are, like part of my protocol for mast cell activation. And so I will tell you more about those. I'm going to do a slightly more in-depth training on MCAS on Monday. It's going to be in Dr. Nicola's Wellness Community, which is my Facebook group. I will post the link so that if you're not a member, you can click on that, and I'll do a training at 11 a.m. Pacific time this coming Monday. And it will be going live in the Wellness Community. And I will talk to you about my favorite natural products for MCAS. We can talk more about the dietary aspects. We can talk about some of the lab tests that may be indicators, and just dig a little bit deeper when we have more time to go into it, and we'll get into more detail. So we'd love to see you there, and I wish you all a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and I'll see you in the training on Monday.